to start with the external ear. First of all, the external ear is comprised of the auricle as well as the external acoustic meatus. So the auricle, just like the heart has a couple of auricles that cover the atria, the ear has an auricle. And this entire structure, everything that we think of as being the traditional ear structure, that's actually the auricle. And it has a couple of features. Labeled number 2, this is the helix, so it's running along here, that's the helix. And labeled number 3 is the lobule, or the lobule, depending on how you pronounce it. Do not call this lobe on your practical. Here in lab, it is the lobule. All right, so that's the auricle with its structures. Then moving inward, we have structure number 1, and that's our external acoustic meatus. So sound waves get captured and kind of caught by the auricle, and then they get funneled into that external acoustic meatus. And when they travel along through, they hit feature or structure number 31. We're going to take that out, which is the tympanic membrane. You'll see on here that it's actually labeled to number 2, but since the helix is labeled 2 out here, we're going to pretend that this is 31. So the tympanic membrane right here. So that is our external ear. I'm going to put this guy back into place. And now we're going to go over the middle ear, or rather the structures that are found inside the middle ear. So first of all, we have something called the tympanic cavity. This cavity right in here that I'm referencing or pointing to right now, that's housed inside the petrous part of your temporal bone. You can see the styloid process right there. The ear obviously is a good giveaway as to what bone this is right here. So this is our temporal bone. And if you remember from practical 1, that petrous region is like the mountainous region inside your skull. So here's the petrous part, here's our tympanic cavity, and it houses the inner or the middle ear ossicles. We also call them the auditory ossicles, and they're named for the function that they serve. Basically what happens is sound waves come in, hit the tympanic membrane, which causes these ossicles to oscillate, just move back and forth, and they amplify sound waves so that you can hear somebody whispering just as easily or almost as easily as you hear somebody talking normally or yelling. So if we didn't have that oscillating feature of the auditory ossicles, you could only hear people shouting at you. Let's actually look at those ossicles. You'll want to know what they are. So the first one, labeled 7 right here, it's kind of hard to see. It almost looks like a 4, but it's supposed to be a 7. That is our malleus. And you can remember that the malleus looks like a mallet. So then the second ossicle that you'll want to know is number 8 right here. And I think that it looks like a tooth. Other people say that it looks like a saddle, which I guess I could see that. And calling it a saddle makes the last one make more sense as well. Because this right here, labeled, I think it's number 9 in here, is the stapes. And I think that the stapes looks like the stirrup of a saddle. So you'll just want to remember the malleus, the incus, and the stapes are our auditory ossicles. Now, the last structure in the middle ear that you want to know is this tube running right here. And it's got a couple of different names, but I like to call it the pharyngotympanic tube because it tells me exactly where it's starting and where it's going. So it's starting here up with the tympanic membrane and it's going to the pharynx. So pharyngotympanic tube just makes sense to me. You could also call it your eustachian tube, or what's the other name for it? I think it's called the auditory tube as well, but again, I like to call number 6 the pharyngotympanic. Okay, moving on to the inner ear. First thing that I want to say is that all of the structures inside of the inner ear are housed in a labyrinth. So labyrinth just means cavity, or yeah, I think that's the best way to translate it or think of it. So it's this cavity where those structures sit inside of it. So the labyrinth is protected by that petrous region. of the temporal bone. And you can see this cavity, I'll take it out again, you can see that cavity right there. So the structures found inside your inner ear are the structures that help us to hear and to have balance or equilibrium. On the practical, you want to call it equilibrium, not balance. All right, so let me take these out and show you the 3 structures that you're going to want to know. The first one, right here, number 13. Number 13 is the vestibule, and this helps us with balance or equilibrium, and specifically it helps us with static balance. And static balance is when you're standing still, when you're not like moving forward or backward or up and down, to be able to have balance. So if you tilt your head while you're standing still, that's this structure right in here, number 13, is what allows us to reestablish equilibrium and remain upright. Numbers 17, 18, and 19, those are your semicircular canals. And they also help us with balance, but this time, or equilibrium, but this time they help us with dynamic balance. So when you're running or jumping up and down or doing, twists and spins, this is what helps you to remain upright and have balance whilst moving. So all of these are our semicircular canals. So number 20, wow, the glare on this is pretty horrendous. I'm gonna put this back in here. So number 20 right here, that is the cochlea. And the cochlea is the only part of our ear, or rather our inner ear, that helps us with hearing. So cochlea is responsible for hearing, and it's innervated, number 21 innervates it. This is cranial nerve number 8, which is the vestibulocochlear nerve. And again, it's, the name of it tells you exactly where it goes to. So part of it goes to the cochlea, and part of it is going to branch off and innervate that vestibule area. Thus the name vestibulocochlear nerve. Before finishing up this video, I just want to show you a slightly larger, or actually massively larger, version of those inner ear structures. Right here, even though they're kind of exposed, this whole region is where, or what we would consider to be the vestibule. These guys right here, those are obviously our semicircular canals. And here we have the cochlea, and the 2 branches are of our vestibulocochlear nerve. This model right here, you can see that this part comes off. This is going to be really helpful for when you guys are learning and memorizing the auditory pathway up in lecture. But for right now, just know the basic structures, which are the cochlea, the vestibule, and the semicircular canals.